All right, gentlemen, for purposes of starting the meeting, so this is this evening's Advisory Commission on Coastal Waters. We're a special meeting for the Mooring Policy Committee. In attendance are John and Sam and Flip and Kevin, with imported and other members of the public. I had thought that I would be able to make the cast to this document, to this device, but I'm learning that that's just not either within my technical veracity, or I was advised you need your own HDMI cable, which I did not know to bring. So what I would ask is, I think, John, you have the agenda printed out there.
Yes.
Maybe we just do the buddy system here? Yeah. Why don't you and Sam share that bad boy? And we'll just go through this in terms of the agenda. And this is my proposed agenda for this evening. We've just done the first part. We've done it masterfully. You've got to order. I think we should, as a goal tonight, lay out our key project plan, what we want to accomplish, our time frame, and the key deliverables. That will also dovetail directly into the proposed changes from John as the harbor master, and then we'll finish up. I'd love to see us walk away with at least a couple things done tonight. At least we would have had the benefit of all the collective thoughts on the document that I understand Flip and Sam built, which was represented.
Well, yeah, just to be clear,
More so.
we really, in a mechanical sense, that's true.
Yeah.
But all we really did was to interlace the comments, proposed changes that John had
Right.
previously come up with into the current ordinance.
Yeah. And John was helpful for replying back to the group a couple of key parts. I had asked John, number one, what are, relative to the mooring ordinance changes, what would create success for you? What should we say our objective is? And if I oversimplify it, was to create transparency and clarity about how mooring are assigned, how they're managed. Is that an oversimplification?
No, I mean, that covers it.
Yeah, I'm oversimplifying.
There's a few other bullet points that I added, but,
Yeah.
Transparency has always been fair awarding of permits, and just management of wait lists, expectations, etc. of the public.
Yeah. For example, I didn't include in your other aspects, which are public safety, boating safety. It's not that I don't think that those are important. It's just that relative to the Mooring Policy Committee, I'm not sure how we would address specifically boater safety.
Well, I gave you everything as far as what I do,
Yeah.
and you can take out what doesn't go.
No, and I got it. And so I asked, specific to the mooring policy, we would focus, at least
Sure.
our charter is on the mooring policy. Hopefully that gives some context.
I think the other point to maybe clarify is that what we're going to talk about tonight are really policies that have to do with the granting and location of moorings and things like that. At some point, we will have to circle around and actually talk about mooring specifications, the tackle that is appropriate, weight, the quality of the tackle.
Mhm.
That's a related but different subject that we're not going to hit on tonight.
Right.
Yeah, I agree, because I think there are a couple adjacent examples, as you said, the regulatory stuff for that. I would expect that what we deliver to the output of our meetings is going back, in my view of the process, is going back to the larger advisory commission with a set of recommendations. And that should consider all the adjacent space, including boat safety, example being the buoys you want to place for speed control and weight control, the adequacy of the mooring specification. I think we need to give a complete composite, a complete story of all those aspects. That needs to go to the larger commission, which will then be eventually submitted to the Board of Selectmen, which eventually will be submitted to the RTM for the approval of the ordinance. I think that's the sequence of events, and I included that in the meeting.
Some of it will,
If
yeah.
I could maybe suggest one small modification to that, which is the tackle specifications. I believe that is a specific enough and focused enough subject matter that can, that does not need broad public approval for, unlike this, which is more policy-based.
But the ordinances on the tackle are specified by the harbor master and approved by the Board of Selectmen.
Right.
So that piece, and I've actually seen correspondence that agrees with that from offices in town hall. Some of the other items that we're going to talk about definitely have to go before
So
a larger body.
the point
You
I
gotta
was
set
trying
a
to make
point.
was both procedural in terms of how it should actually work, but also timing-wise, because all of this takes a long time.
That's what I'm pointing out, yeah.
I think we can consider the mooring tackle like not part of that process, so we don't need to reach consensus on all of that before we start these things down the road.
I think the Board of Selectmen will expect a one package that includes any recommended changes in ordinances.
Yes, but those are not changes, the tackle are not changes in
Okay,
ordinances.
so that is just a restatement of the existing? Or
No, it's changes in, it's not in ordinance. If you look at, for instance, at these draft ordinances,
Mhm.
the ordinances contemplate in essence that there be schedules that contain those tackle specifications, and those schedules can be updated from time to time without changing the ordinances.
Ordinances, yes.
So that's, to me, that is a more tactical level of detail that is not, and I can also tell you that the current mooring tackle specifications that were put in place a while ago, those certainly did not go to, they were approved exactly as John suggested. They were kind of put forward by the harbor master with the concurrence of the coastal commission and then approved by the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah.
Yes, I wouldn't expect there's a lot of debate on that point.
Yeah.
I fully agree.
Yeah.
So as you're thinking that we're going to pull forth those as adjacent work, that we got mooring policy, administration, management, and then we have a parallel set of recommendations on mooring specifications, all goes to commission and then to this Board of Selectmen.
Yes, but
Okay.
then the ordinances have to go through a longer, more,
Yeah.
more detailed process.
Yeah,
Including the RTM, I think.
including probably public comment.
Yes.
And all that, which I outlined,
That's correct.
And that stuff. So, it's just my view, I pointed that out just to tease out if we have a different view to it, as a neophyte to the ordinance process. Okay, that is kind of a framework. My thought is that we begin working through the document you guys all have. And this is the script that we had just referred to. And again, my hope had been to put this on the screen, but that doesn't look like it's so easily done.
I would say generally that in the process of my production of this draft, which was really taking John's comments and interlacing them here, I think it's fair to say that at least between John and myself, that these look like a reasonable, and now I'm not including the additional language that you inserted in there, but I don't have like further comments on this.
Yeah.
I'm okay with this.
And the question I posed to John was, if as constructed, would this deliver the clarity that you sought in terms of managing the asset of the moorings?
To this point, in the year and a half that I've been doing it, but as I said in my email, it's what I've experienced working in the harbor
Right.
and talking with other harbor masters. This brings us much closer to what our surrounding towns are doing right now. We've all looked at, the harbor management plans of the other towns. Some of them get into much, much heavier detail than we do, but they're harbor management plans, not ordinances.
Right, sure.
But like I said, there are some changes in this, but my primary goal on this is to document what has been in place in the past. Now, there's some minor changes, which we can go over, and you have a couple of comments on it, and we can address that. But looking at the other talking to the other harbor masters, I'm following what Tom told me when we first met and I took over the position. And I see a lot of it, comparison, even in our ordinances, a lot of the practices you'll see in the other documents from the other towns. So I think that gets us on the right track.
Yep.
I think this is a first good run. When's the next time we have to do it? I don't know, but maybe we won't need to. I think only time will tell, based on what other things we encounter in the harbor.
Yeah.
We have a very full harbor. I know we can work on possibly adding some more, but we have a very large wait list. And, things have changed, I think, since these ordinances were written. I don't even know how old they are, but a lot has changed.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think we also have to view this as, we should not consider this an iterative process. That we should contemplate what we need to do through your term, your successor, and your successors, and the best we can. And as opposed to take the approach that says, well, let's just get let's put more rigor in, but let's not be comprehensive. When this has to go to the Board of Selectmen and the RTM, we don't want it. We need to be comprehensive.
Yeah, other than the mooring tackle specifications, which are set up, contemplated to be sort of exhibits.
Yeah.
At least from my perspective, having been involved with the Coastal Commission for a long time and involved with the harbor generally, I think this is comprehensive based on what we know today. I mean, there may be things that we learn as we continue to work with the harbor and work getting the moorings mooring procedures refined. But based on what we know today, I don't think there's any major areas that have been left out.
Okay. Then as we go through that, I guess that's the question we need to
Sure.
raise. Have we considered it? Do we have enough to let you and your successor efficiently and effectively manage the asset? Okay. Got it.
So, yes.
All right.
So I have one comment on page 2, which relates to page 1. I like the way you redefined Darien Harbor. Flip, I think that's your comment. And you took out those references for true and exact yardage and everything. And I'm wondering if Fish Islands number 7 on page 2 could just be defined along those same lines, like the cluster of islands immediately south of Contentment Island.
Yes, if you see, I put a notation at the end of that paragraph. I didn't want to define it myself, but we need to conform that definition, however we want to do it, to. And Fish Islands, I think by its nature is plural, but there is only one Fish Island, the other is Crab Island. And so as a group, we can refine how we want to define Fish Islands, but it probably should be Fish Island and not Fish Islands, plural.
That makes reference to page 2, section 7.
Yep.
Well, yeah, just following the logic sort of 2 and 4 on the previous page.
How would we go about doing that? You've got specificity, geographic specificity.
Well,
Fish Islands.
Well, part of it is we should all look at a map and confirm that there is on the maps one island called Fish Island, which I believe is the case. And then you can just
Yeah, I have a chart.
drive it off of that. Um,
Yep,
But
yep.
we could still title number 7 Fish Islands and then define it.
Yeah,
More
on a
accurately.
chart, it's defined as fish islands.
Okay.
Yeah, which seems to refer to all of them.
Yeah,
Yeah, comprehensive.
Which is good for our purposes.
yeah. I know they're individually named, but I think just they're collectively called the fish
Yeah.
islands.
Okay.
Yeah.
Therefore, is that adequate?
Well, we just need to conform, first of all, just take out all the references to true bearings and distances, because
Yeah.
I don't know, I don't have any way of checking any of those things,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah,
and I
those
don't
are-
think
yeah.
anybody's ever gonna actually use them. So that's just a matter of deleting those.
I mean, we could say something as simple as those islands marked on the nautical charts as Fish Islands immediately south of Contentment Island.
But the other point I was trying to also raise in here is the definition of Scott Cove kind of also comes over and invades some of that space, I believe.
Your point being that they should be mutually exclusive, either it's Scott's or it's Fisher. Fish Island?
North of the line, from the northernmost extremity of Fish Islands, which should be plural, if we're gonna leave that.
Yep.
So it's north of that line, west of the line. So the northernmost, maybe again, we need to pull out the chart. The northernmost extremity of the Fish Islands is,
Why wouldn't it be the southernmost extremity of Contentment Island? Because that's actually where I always think of Scotts Cove as being Contentment
Well,
Island and
that
Hay
way-
Island going, and Great Island going in,
right, see,
going north.
the northernmost extremity of Fish
Fish Island.
Island, to me, looks like what I consider to be Fish Island, the place that people pull their boats up
Yeah.
on the beach. And so, if you define it as north of that, then you pick up the whole kind of channel area where people moor their boats into the Scotts Cove
Mhm.
definition. And then it also gets picked up in the Fish Islands definition. So you have
Mhm.
both of those definitions creating an overlap.
Would it, as a path forward, as a practical path on this topic, one of us essentially just relook at that with a mind toward it and come back with a recommendation
to-
to harmonize that?
Yeah, I think it could, I think to your point, it could be that Scotts Cove is defined as west of the
Westernmost point of Contentment Island.
southwesternmost point of Contentment Island.
Over to Great Island.
Then over, yeah, as it says here, over to Great Island.
I think so.
Did I get that done? That would get definition around Scott's.
Yeah, I'll read
Yeah, then-
to
okay.
Scott's.
Then they
and-
won't overlap.
Good,
That's the
yeah,
problem.
I think that your point is. So Sam to retool?
Yeah, I'll just send 4 and 7 back
Yep,
amongst us.
perfect.
And not all the other stuff.
Great, okay, great.
So when you look at it on a chart, it really does sort of blend. You have like the entrance to
Well, the water
Scott's.
depths do, but this is, I mean, when.
Well, the obstructions, yeah, you tend to think of it as farther away, but when you look at it as a whole, because normally your path would be around and through here, around and through here, but when you look at it this way, they sort of do blend. You kind of almost see like Fish Islands are almost at the mouth of Scott
I would
Cove.
draw the line right between there and there.
Yeah.
So that's Scott's Cove.
I think your point though, if I got it right, is that the idea is that we don't want overlap. We want
Yes.
clearly defined
5
boundaries.
miles per
Yeah.
hour.
However that's
running
accomplished.
From like here anyway,
Yeah.
hopefully.
But yeah, there's already 5 mile an hour right here, and then a straight line across there. And Fish Island already is 5 mile an hour, so it,
Because you'd be out of your mind if you went faster.
most people know.
So my notes are gonna reflect that specific page 1 and 2, let's see if I got this right. Standard review and recommend refinement with the goal of no overlap and defined boundaries for sections 1 through 7.
I'm actually gonna only focus on 4 and 7.
The other ones are
Okay,
distinct. but-
okay, 4 and 7, okay. Okay, cool, all right.
I better get my ancient old nautical chart out and make sure I'm right.
Cool.
I'll get that back to you guys before early weekend. I'm in the city all day tomorrow.
Excellent, okay, thank you. I'm just gonna keep going. I guess at the above penalties 78-2, there's a reference to somebody look as a Laura, check these ordinance for accuracy.
That actually applies to all the code references throughout the document.
Yeah. So my thought is, at some point in time, as an output of this thing, we're gonna need, I think, town council to take a look at this and say,
Yeah.
hey, is it enforceable? Have we avoided ambiguity? Yada, yada, yada. So I think we can capture that.
Yep.
Is that path forward? Okay. Looking at penalties, and I'm not sure, I made a comment here. I don't know that this actually belongs here. I think I was just lazy as far as I placed this, but I think we will need to, I think council would advise us as well, that to the extent that we have, if someone is subject to penalties, there must be a process for notice to that person, and there must be a process for a cure in order to have it defendable and enforceable. So that may go in a later point, but we would need to create some process about how the harbor master manages up to giving the right to terminate the mooring process holder's mooring permit.
Well, so there is section 7829.
Yeah.
Which doesn't talk about cures, but it does talk about appeals.
Yep. So I agree it needs to go later. That's probably there. I'm going to keep advancing, I guess, to the top of page 3, 78-25, speed limit, slow no wait. I guess my notes, there was a thought, there's language that has been removed and shall not obtain speeds greater than 5/6 miles per hour over the ground. What was the thinking there?
The thinking, at least as me, who was the person who deleted that, is all of these areas are really, people call them colloquially 5-mile-an-hour zones. They're really no wake zones. If your boat is going 4 knots and leaving a big wake, you're violating
Right.
the thing. So they are,
Yeah.
and furthermore, from a enforcement point of view, the police can easily see the wake. They cannot see whether you're going 4.5 knots, 5 knots, or 5.5 knots. So,
And you have to use miles per hour.
sorry?
And you have to use miles per hour because that's what they all are.
Well, yeah, and so it just, I think what we're trying to do is prevent people from leaving a big wake.
Yeah.
So there are no wake zones.
So I looked at your note and I thought it was interesting. So I actually called the Norwalk Harbor Master.
Okay.
And in addition to being Norwalk Harbor Master, he also just retired from the Norwalk Marine Police Division 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
So I asked him about speed guns. He said, "What?" He says, "We don't have any speed guns. We don't use them." And then he called his predecessor. So now we don't monitor speed. I mean, speed is a factor,
Right.
but it's wake. And the speed gun is not going to give you anything on wake. And I think I was talking to Flip about it. I said, nothing nothing throws more wake than a jet ski doing about 3 knots. It's all about, wake.
What does our Darien Marine Police have you toward? Have they been discussed, have we discussed this with them?
As far as,
Well, they're the party that has to enforce it, right?
I mean, I have actually seen them enforce wake in the harbor. Speed, like to
Yeah.
Flip's point, they look for the wake,
Yeah, that's the important thing.
Yeah, so I guess my thought would be is if the Darien Marine Police, if the definition that they prefer and that they are, that they will enforce and can enforce is wake versus speed, I'm indifferent. I now have the benefit of your thinking.
Okay.
My view is a discussion with, and this should be part of the review cycle for this whole document, should be the Darien Marine Police.
Yep.
Whatever definition they have, will support at least, I think, all of our intent. Okay, so I guess the specific item there is, if we approach this subject to the input from the Darien Marine Police,
I actually went and looked at our actual permits that we got from the state, I think back in, was it 2015, I believe. And what we're permitted for is slow, no wake buoys, not 5 mile an hour.
What do our buoys actually say to you? 5 mile an hour?
I think they say, I don't think they say 5 mile an hour. To your point, everybody just has 5 miles an hour. At one point, Norwalk actually had a 6 mile an hour zone, and they changed that.
yeah. These have that signage as you enter the harbor.
Oh, yeah, right out in front of Manresa, there was, for years, there was a 6 mile an hour on the day marker, and then I noticed one year it changed to 5. But it says no wake.
I think our ones entering our harbor say no wake, and they don't say 5 or 6 or anything.
I don't think they do say 5, but I think everybody's got it ingrained in their head that they say, you say 5 miles an hour, but it's really no wake.
The two harbors, in my experience, that are most aggressively enforced for, let's just say, wake condition are Norwalk and Stanford.
Yes,
And you go back in the context of boater safety.
yeah.
That's why this is Allen. So I'm going to write in my notes that on section 78-25 that we need Darien Marine to weigh in on language in terms of both for enforceability purposes.
And that would mean that line between Contentment Island and Great Island, where the buoys hopefully would say no wake.
Hay Island, the easternmost
Yeah,
point of
Hay
Hay
Island.
Island to
Hay Island,
Content,
yeah.
to Content.
Would say no wake.
Would be a no wake zone.
And hopefully we'd have maybe 4 of them, or 3. We'd have enough that you couldn't possibly miss them.
I was thinking 2 would do it, because you've already got one at the mouth of Scott's. So you've got one here, one in the middle, and then one on the way to Scott's, and then immediately, as you look right, you'll see the 5 mile wake over at Fish Island in the additional one. We can ask for more, but I don't know how many we
It's a
need.
good start.
There's an expense associated with annual maintenance
Because you
of
gotta
each of
maintain
these, so.
them. Yeah.
Yeah,
The language is constructed says in any Darien waters except 5 Mile River. Excuse me.
Where are you?
No, I apologize. Under the first line of section 78-25, a vessel shall not produce blah blah in all Darien harbors. Is is Darien Harbor is meant to be almost like a defined term? Meaning
It is a defined.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you
Yeah.
go back to the
Yeah.
first page, that is
yeah.
that's all the 7 harbors there.
If you look at a chart, the chart's defined Darien Harbor as Norotan Harbor, and then we also have Norotan Bay. And it gets confusing. And I think most people refer to it as Darien Harbor, but technically on the chart, it says Norotan. So Flip and I talked about it, and we talk about it as Darien, but we also state that if you look at a chart, it may say Norotan Harbor.
Yeah. Where appropriate for greater specificity, just like you do berthing harbors and such. But therefore, is it intent? Furthermore, will be another no wake zone. It's actually signal a change, because by definition, I think if Darien harbors include Ziegler's Cove and Scott's Cove.
The area we're talking about is not a harbor.
Okay, so that's why you're
Yeah.
calling this out.
It's a zone. Like, for example, if you were to go up Connecticut River or Mystic River, there are 5 mile an hour zones, and they're not harbors. These zones are defined by the state as areas that have dockage, fuel docks, mooring fields, etc. They're not really harbors, but they're 5 mile an hour zones, because if you look at the statutes around going 5 or no wake zones, I'm going to break myself at that eventually. The no wake zones, it talks about the circumstances that create those zones, and you don't have to have a harbor in order have a no wake zone.
So the intent here is to incremental to the Darien harbors, as is defined. The intention is to signal that there will be an incremental wake zone in specified geographies of Ziegler's Cove and Scotts Cove.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, I mean, going back to page 1, the harbors of the town are defined to be as follows, and then it lists 1 through 7.
Yeah. Okay. 7826. Again, this goes back to your point. You carved that out for purposes of this. We just refer to it. And your thought was to do it via exhibits?
I'm not sure what the right legal,
Yeah.
I was using the term exhibit colloquially.
Yeah, understood.
I think it's just, it's not even, in my mind, technically an exhibit to this, it's a schedule that that the harbor master produces. When it's approved by the board of selectmen, it then gets posted on the town website and the harbor master site for people to look at.
I have no problem with that.
As a consumer, just out of curiosity, I've got a mushroom. Should I, at the point that it no longer passes inspection, whatever that is, should I expected to replace it with a door mooring?
Well, you're using dormer colloquially also to refer to a pyramid mooring.
Yeah.
A pyramid mooring.
Yeah.
And so it's always going to be your choice whether you go with dormer, which
Okay, a pyramid.
it is dormer is definitely more expensive, but it's a nicely built mooring. Yes, at your mooring location, and it will depend on mooring locations. We would suggest.
I don't have that much money.
It doesn't really have to do with mud versus hard sand bottoms. Yours is a more hard sand bottom. But it has to do more with the depth of the water, because the problem with the mushroom anchors in the shallow water is
Dead low, you can see them.
they get stood up on their bell, and so that the metal shank is actually sticking straight up, sometimes even.
Which is petrifying.
Yes, so.
Yeah.
So in shallow waters, especially, in the hard sand areas, there's a high correlation between those two. The pyramid moorings are probably better suited for that.
It's a safer approach. But you've raised a different point though, Sam.
Well, I'm actually going back on that very same point to John. My mushroom anchor fails inspection next year. No other change. Is there going to be a regulation from you that it will be replaced with a pyramid anchor, or can I go out and get a mushroom in good shape?
I mean, I don't make this decision in a vacuum. I mean, I definitely talk to the contractors. I've been in contact with Scott and Flip.
But so
about this.
let me ask you just to hold that thought, because you're skipping to the mooring tackle specifications.
I know.
And that's one of the areas that we need to talk about and come to consensus. The issue of.
And I know it's not policy. I got it. Okay, so let's go on.
Yeah,
All right.
because we agreed to carve it out.
Yeah.
But there is a part of that too that says, this aspect, if we make a change to the mooring policy, there will, I think, it's incumbent upon us to make that known to the public, and my recommendation, in a open forum, so that there's awareness and there's public comment. Because in your case, Sam, you said, listen, I've always done what I've always done. Now you're asking me to do something different.
I would be
Why?
okay, actually, with it not being a policy. It just being a part of the schedule of acceptable mooring gear, given bottom and weight of vessel, and
I think it could
get
be
the
done.
information from the harbor could be okay with that.
I think could be done as more easily as an email from the harbor master to the people who are permitted and who are on the wait list, that there's been a change in the specifications.
But I personally don't think there's a place for public discussion where people are saying,
Right.
I'd like a concrete block, or I have the
Right.
engine block for my old Jeep that I can just throw down there, and that's good enough.
Yeah.
The
agree.
point of the specifications is to create safety in the harbor through some degree of standardization of the tackle.
Okay. Sorry to have diverted this
No, I got it.
conversation.
I use this teasing up this aspect of, for change to our long-standing practices. Now, what is the way to?
The other thing I would say is that at least heretofore, we have implemented these changes on what I'll call a rolling basis, which is if, for instance, we made a determination that pyramid anchors are better than mushroom anchors, I'm not suggesting that that's the decision, but if we did, it would be not that you have to throw out your old mushroom anchor and get a new pyramid anchor next year. It would be when your pyramid anchor wears out, you would replace it with, with your mushroom anchor wears out, you would replace it with a pyramid. And same thing for the smaller parts of the tackle. It's when your existing stuff wears out, you then bring it up to speed, not,
Yeah, there's a phasing approach.
yes.
Yeah, got it. And I think for all those reasons,
Which is
that's
what I
a
do
separate
anyway.
category. Right.
Okay.
All right, let's go to, looking for, I think we have agreement, no changes here. 7828,
Yeah, this is, I think, above my pay grade.
Yeah.
This doesn't look right to me as but somebody needs to decide that, some lawyer person.
yeah, is that, if I refer to that, we need input from the town council?
Yeah,
Okay,
I mean, they're gonna have to review all of this,
Right.
and that annotation was
Yeah.
for them.
got it.
I think we'd have to ask if there was some intent in mind. I mean, technically, I am not responsible for floating docks, fixed piers, et cetera, like that. Maybe the intention only there is I'm to keep an eye on it and report of any issues or something, but I in no way can permit docks or floats or any of that sort of thing. So maybe there was an intent there, we could ask.
Some of this language may also predate, certainly, the formation of DEEP as it's currently called. And it may be that in the deep historical past, the harbor master did permit those things. And it's just that this language has never been
Updated.
trued up.
True.
Isn't it's a state statute is really the driver here. I think the foundational driver is the state, whatever, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
That's deep.
DEEP is
Yeah.
clearly allocated the regulatory authority over those things.
Okay, 7829.
No comment from me.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that there. As I spoken to, when I discussed it with Flip, you know, this would be in the case that of the harbor master makes some egregious determination, like I'm taking your permit away from you because I don't like you, that sort of thing. I don't know that it's ever come to pass, that it's ever happened, but you know, it could be there in case there was something that the harbor master did outside of his rights at the state level and at the ordinance levels. So,
But I guess it does, I mean, certainly these revised ordinances, there is a penalty section here, 7822, which talks about when someone, not egregiously, but just violates
Procedurally.
these ordinances, one, you may have a variety of remedies, including taking away their mooring permit.
Up to including.
And so that, if they disagree, this is their cause of act, this is their remedy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
yeah,
And I'm gonna suggest that in that remedy, there'll need to be a process that includes, how will you notify the party? And, what period do they have to, is it a, I don't, I'm not gonna contemplate all the use cases, but what procedurally you should give them enough time to cure the problem. And I think we should draw that out.
Well, in many cases, there's actually state statutes on how it's to be drawn out if they're in violation of their permit.
Okay, that exists, okay?
Yeah,
Then we should understand that, that should be probably pulled in here.
sure. There's a number of statutes that cover, there's a number of reasons, but, I can dig that up.
Yeah,
and
so
share.
I think just to build that out, because I'm hoping that not only will you be able to manage the harbor effectively, but the extent that there's emotional parties, I mean, what would cause someone to be emotional? Either you're taking something, the perception that you're taking something away, or you're not granting them a right or privilege. And the extent that that is proceduralized and known, I think it will help you and your successors. So 78,
Yeah. Well, I
Not-
think the intent of these changes illustrates what can get you into that predicament.
there are examples, certainly.
Yes.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna write John to identify any state statutes, language, process, and then remedy. Cure for addition, at least to consider review of it. Okay. Have I captured that reasonably well? Okay. let me
Sorry,
read
I'm
back.
sorry, I was writing my
Appeals.
notes.
John to identify any state statutes, language, process, remedy, cure for additions.
Yes, that's what I was writing.
Okay,
Yes.
good. Okay, I'm sensing that our court stenographer is not working so well tonight, so I'm anticipating that,
Yeah.
that I will take notes and make that part of our meeting record.
Sure,
Okay.
sounds good.
78.30,
Yeah, just stating that
Yeah.
these ordinances can't override state statutes.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
yep, yep. 78.31, rafting of boats.
Yes. So, we have, in our ordinances, the rafting of boats. We've made earlier clarification about what types of harbors we have, which we didn't have before. So now we have berthing harbors and we have day harbors. We've specified that only day harbors can have rafting, which we never had before.
Which we didn't have in the language, but I think it's practical now.
Oh,
Yeah.
Is how I don't think we're creating any new issue
no,
there.
it's
Yeah,
always
agreed.
been like that. It's always been rafting up was in Scott's and Ziegler's
Yeah.
for the most part. So this is
and
just,
Fish Island.
oh, Fish Island too, yes,
Now, is that considered by definition a day mooring harbor?
yes.
Okay.
Well, there are some berthing moorings over there, but if you look, what was interesting about Fish Island as a harbor, it actually states that moorings are prohibited except those authorized by state statute, which my understanding would be moorings for people with littoral rights.
Yeah.
And those are the only people, well, there's only, I won't get into it,
Yeah,
but there are ones.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
Well, is this comprehensive enough? It's been crafted language to only apply allowed in day harbors.
Hey, John, as I'm now looking at the definition of day mooring harbor,
Yeah,
we ought to also include 5 Mile River, because we're not allowing, I'm sorry, in the exclusion of day harbors, in the second sentence where it says all Darien harbors other than Norotan Harbor, Norotan Bay Harbor, then that should be Darien Harbor.
Right.
Procedurally, do we have control over 5 Mile River?
It's a harbor, but it's run by the 5 Mile River Commission.
So is it out of our scope?
I don't know that I have any power over there. And I've spoken to the Norwalk Harbor Master, and he goes, I have no say over there. So it's like the
They have a
the
carve out
5
to
Mile River
themselves?
Commission.
Well, yeah, there's a whole separate
Yeah.
commission. This commission, the Advisory Commission on Darien Coastal Waters, does not have any, but
It's outside our scope?
it's in, I guess the lawyers can look at it and figure out.
Yeah, I mean, part of, it's
What?
like, I think a line
It's-
runs down the middle of
It
the
is
river.
part of, the
Yeah.
western half of 5 Mile River is Darien water. It's just not part of this commission's
Mhm.
authority.
Yeah.
But I guess my point is, it's where it says all Darien harbors other than Darien Harbor and Norotan Bay, it should also say
5 Mile
5
River.
Mile River.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So the modification would be there.
Yeah. Well, that's sort of like a technical
Yeah, yeah.
point.
Where is
Yeah.
that, Phil? Flip, where are you making that?
In the definition of
7821?
day harbor, on the first page,
Yeah,
day mooring harbor, we say all Darien harbors other than Darien Harbor and Norotan Bay Harbor. It should also be 5 Mile River Harbor,
Yes,
because you don't,
I would agree.
Okay, let me.
that's not a day harbor.
Right.
And the correct descriptor would be, and 5 Mile?
And the defined term.
and down under
Yeah.
number 1 for Norotan Bay, that should probably read Norotan Bay Harbor.
It just is called, like all of these it's called 5 Mile River.
Yep.
That's the.
I think Norotan
Not
Bay,
harbor, river.
Norotan Bay is a harbor. I don't even
But
know.
We refer to this thing up top in all caps, Norotan Bay Harbor. And I'm just wondering, just
Sure.
to be consistent, if we should stick with Norotan Bay Harbor.
No, it should be lower, it should just be Norotan Bay.
Lower caps.
Yeah, it's Norotan Bay and it's Darien
Strike
Harbor.
Harbor.
Right.
Yeah, it's Norotan Bay and Darien Harbor.
Okay, got it.
I'll try to get those when I do 1 and 7.
So thank you. Let's go back to the inference associated with 31, because we've tied a couple different thoughts in there. So the question is, we talked about the geography, we defined that better, but what's our intent? Do you have a recommendation? Do we want 3, do we want 4?
There's never less than 4.
Yes, I mean,
What do we want? I mean, what will support?
what drives this? There's a couple of things that drive the number of boats rafted up. There's tackle limitations, and then there's also navigational issues. Now, there are areas of the harbor where you could have not that I'm recommending it,
Yeah.
you could have a 6-boat raft up,
Sure.
and it's off in a corner, it wouldn't cause any issues. Maybe noise, but that's about it. There's other areas where 3 might be a problem. So I think knowing that you'll see 3, you'll see 4, it's more about where it is in where you are doing it. Like a 4 raft up in Scotts Cove is inconsequential right now in this present day. It could be a problem in Ziegler's Cove, depending on where it is.
I would be comfortable increasing it to 4 in terms of the numerical limit, but I do think it's important to keep the last sentence in here,
Absolutely.
which is that the harbor master or the marine police, at their discretion and for no specific reason, whether the weather is getting worse whether it's a loud party and it's disturbing the peace for everybody else,
Right.
whatever it is.
Maybe we should add to that, may disperse rafted vessels regardless of,
Yeah.
Well, it's just,
regardless of the number in the raft.
I just put in, and independent of number of rafted vessels. Does that accomplish that? The harbor master,
Yep.
at their discretion and independent of number of rafted
yeah,
vessels.
however you want,
Yeah.
but that sentence, I think, is a really important one.
Okay. I have, if you said 4,
Yeah.
doesn't, and if, you know, it's a practical matter where I don't think we want to subdivide Ziegler's Cove into this is the 4 area, this is the
No,
3 area.
God, no.
As a
No,
practical
no,
matter.
no, no, no.
So if
It's the
4, if
Yeah.
you can live with 4,
Not to get back to the subject we were talking about before, but tackle standards, you can make a 4 raft up with the proper tackle
agreed.
less of an issue.
Yeah.
Then it's just navigation and possibly noise you have to.
At this point in time, are you contemplating adding rigor to the mooring specification for Ziegler's Cove?
The problem with Ziegler's Cove is the boats are closer together and there's much less scope underneath the buoys. So you don't have longer chain, you don't have that angle that Flip was talking about. Over the years, they've put more and more moorings in there, and in order to accommodate that, they've made the scope, the length of the chain shorter.
Sure.
The only way to compensate for that is a heavier anchor.
So,
And under the current mooring specification, mooring tackle specifications, there's no differentiation about whether the mooring is in Darien Harbor
Right.
or Ziegler's Cove. And so if you have a mooring in Ziegler's Cove and you have a 17-foot sailboat, you look up our tackle recommendations and you say, oh, I need a 200-pound
Yep.
mooring for that boat, which that might be fine if that's the only boat that was ever on that mooring. Then you come out the next Sunday and you've got 4 40-foot cabin cruisers tied to it. And even in calm weather, they're lucky they don't float that mooring off the bottom.
so using your use case, because that's a practical way, should we stick with 4? Should we go back to 3?
Well, no, I think what at least historically we've talked about is change, and one of the reasons that this definition of a day harbor versus a berthing harbor is helpful is it starts to let you create different mooring standards for different harbors. And the fact of the matter is, I think, that in at least Ziegler Harbor right now, maybe over time it will turn out to be in Scotts Cove too, there's a need for heavier tackle because realistically, those people are not parking their 17-foot sailboats there. They're just moorings there and people pick them up and they raft them. And
So as a practical way to say, listen, if the intent is over time to beef up the mooring specification for Scott's, Ziegler's and the like, the day moorings, then this, if that's the intent, we envision that, then this idea of 4 seems reasonable.
Yeah.
I just want to, the companion intent is really what we're trying to tease out.
The big difference in the need for the tackle between Scott's and Ziegler's is Ziegler's is a lot deeper. It allows for much larger boats to go in there and raft up. Scott's Cove, if you've got a big boat, you only have a window in there.
Yeah.
And you're not going to find
And does
For-
not include overnight.
45-foot sailboats.
yes.
Or 45-foot sport fishing boats in Scott's Cove. If they're in there, they're there for a couple hours and then they're gone because there's no depth in there.
All right, so with all those reasons, I've changed the language to no more than 4.
Yes.
Does that capture what we're on? And I think our companion logic is over time we'll beef up that mooring standard. Okay, 7832, just a progress check. How are we doing time-wise? It's 8:24. What should we establish as our shut-off time?
9.
9? Okay. No one fights that one? Okay, can I just ask?
I would only suggest if we get to 9 and we're almost done, I would say,
Okay.
let's hang out and get it done.
Okay, fair enough, okay. Different voices, respecting the
We
voices.
can argue about all those.
Yeah. I mean,
This is a beefy one. I think this is, frankly, we're in the beef. We're in the meat now.
Yep.
All right, so, any questions on 7332A or B? Does that give you what you need? Again, I go back to your, it seems you've thought that through, and that will give you a use case that says what they can or can't, and also cannot do. Rent, transfer, allow this.
Right.
Okay, got it. There, okay. All right, so my question is associated with Charlie, section C. My question here is two permitted moorings in Darien Harbor. Why Darien Harbor as opposed to all Darien waters?
This is plural.
Darien Harbors.
At the moment, it's
Okay.
written with an S.
So that would say to me then, in a literal case then, you could have a mooring in, hopefully I get the right nomenclature, the Darien,
You could have a mooring.
As an example, there are many of the people who have moorings in Ziegler's Cove also have moorings in Darien Harbor.
yeah, okay. So that's our intent, is to.
So you could have two in Darien Harbor. You could have one in Darien Harbor, one in Norotan Bay. Keep in mind, when you're in a berthing harbor, they have to be independent boats.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. But, you know, you could have one, like Flip just said. But to your question there, are there any people who have more than two? There's only one family that has more than two.
Okay, so there's no grandfather, well, we would have to grandfather.
I would not be in favor of taking it away from them. I would grandfather it.
Okay,
There's only one family that has that. In most cases that I've come across in the past 2 seasons, I've come across people with 3 moorings, but many of them didn't have 3 boats. So they were empty moorings.
And remember, there are also people who have, what do we call it, riparian moorings?
Literal.
Right?
Literal.
Littoral, yes.
Littoral.
Yeah,
And so that is a little bit of a, you know, some of those they have other moorings, like real moorings, and then they have the mooring in front of their house or something like that.
what problem are we trying to solve for with limiting to 2? I mean, you gave an example, you have one person that has 3.
The demand.
Equity.
200 and some odd people on the wait list. I mean, do you want to say people can have 10 moorings? 10 moorings? I mean, I need to cut it somewheres.
Do we? What problem are we solving?
And honest, fair play, yes, I think so.
I think it's a matter of equity. I mean, to me, to have 3 or 4 or 5 moorings, whatever, when everybody else is sitting on a wait list, I can't even get a boat on a mooring,
Yeah.
Yeah,
that
I'm just going-
doesn't seem right.
I'm taking this perspective that says, where do we want to put our focus on? Is it manage the wait list? Or is it to make sure that the people with legitimate moorings?
Well, not in the, and this is something that we went back and forth on, and we sort of, should this be like a harbor master's FYIs, or it should be a proposed ordinance? I've been working on what's in the harbor as well as what's on the wait list. For example, the Norotan Bay wait list started out at 42 or 44 boats. It's down to 12. It got as low as 9.
Right.
That was getting on the phone, talking to the individuals and saying, do you really want to be there? So I have to manage the wait list from that perspective. So I talk to people, I set expectations, I find out what they're really after. There are also people, and I don't know if it's I don't know if it's something we put, I don't know if it's operational or it's an ordinance. I think it's as an operational, that if you're on the wait list and you turn down the harbor master twice, you should be taken off the wait list. Because now you have just an inflated wait list that everybody looks at, and there are people on it, and there are a few, that each time you offer them a mooring, they just turn you down.
But they stay on the list.
But they stay on the list.
Right.
And the previous harbor master never took them off, I think they should come off the list, in my opinion.
Got it. And if that's your view, then, and if that's the consensus, you want to use this consensus, then we should proceduralize that.
Right.
That's an example of that.
Yeah, so there's a few different ways I'm managing it. But for right now, 2 with the known demand, I think that's a good number. Seeing as that anyone that I've come across that's had more than that didn't have the boats.
So your statement is that there's only one family currently that has,
2 in Darien, 1 in Holly Pond.
okay, so they have 3 moorings.
But again, this, if someone, I mean, to me, if someone has a mooring in Holly Pond, or if someone has a
Doesn't
littoral
even count,
a littoral mooring in,
Well, I mean,
Is
yeah,
Holly
it's
Pond in our
a
scope?
mooring.
Oh,
It's not in our scope.
not our scope.
Yes, yeah,
Yes, it
it's
is.
a mooring.
In Holly Pond?
Holly Pond, that's state waters.
Well-
That's defined as a harbor there.
What, it is?
Is
Yes.
Okay, so help me
So
understand where that
Holly
reference
Pond
is.
is state waters in a Darien harbor.
no,
Why is it? Oh, you know why? There is
Because it's
in the
unnavigable and no right lives
no in
there.
in the current ordinances there is, I think there must have been something at one point where they added on Holly Pond, and there is, if you look at the original unchanged ordinances, I don't know if it's
Well, you
incorporated
can
in
look
here.
at, it's not in here, and it's not in any of the delete boxes.
Holly Pond is, let's take it piece by piece. Holly Pond is clearly part of Darien's waters, town of Darien's waters. It is also clearly
Virginia
part of
watercraft.
John's
Scope.
scope.
Their regulations
Therefore,
on Holly
because
Pond,
the former,
Holly Pond
therefore
pier,
it's the
dock,
latter.
and mooring applications.
If it's in our waters,
With the
then he is
territories
Well,
are
no,
subject
no,
to
'cause
Darien
like 5 Mile
regulations and
River
state statutes
has
and
its own-
Yeah, we
regulations.
should
Is that
add it to
considered our
this
water?
list.
Yes,
It's
It
just
should be
yes.
added,
Okay.
yeah.
The
So,
western half of 5 Mile River
okay,
is
the
part
extent
of.
that it's part of,
the easy answer is we're gonna make it an item number 8 under
okay.
harbors, we're just gonna define
Okay.
Holly Pond.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
So
Good
Holly
catch.
Pond though is unlike the western half of 5 Mile River. The western half of 5 Mile River is within the town of Darien, but it is not subject to either the advisory commission's regulatory authority or John's.
Right.
Holly Pond is subject.
Half of Holly Pond.
Half of Holly, the eastern
Right.
half of Holly Pond is
Subject to,
subject to John's
Darien.
regulatory.
So using this by example, does that include,
Okay, so that cleared that up.
so John, that's the case where you've teased out that you have one family currently who has 3, including one in Holly Pond.
right.
Okay, so we don't have a problem of pulling rights or,
No, I'm not gonna pull a mooring on them, no.
okay,
No.
and so.
But I'm just trying to control, keep it 2 seems to be a good number. That's, I mean, the majority of people have 1, there's a number of people that have 2, but anyone that I came across with 3 or more, they didn't have boats.
Yeah.
They just had anchors, they just had buoys floating in the harbor. So they've been redistributed to people on the wait list.
Now, we should also, just so you guys get educated, any commercial or mooring, so like freights, Norotan Yacht Club,
Yep.
if the Darien Boat Club ever had its own moorings.
Tokenique Beach.
Tokenique Beach, those are regulated by the state, by DEEP, they're not within the 4 corners of this.
Do we even,
I don't think we need to say that, because I
Yeah.
think that's just the way the law
Yeah, yeah,
works.
exactly.
Yeah.
But,
that
I
would
mean,
be for,
there'll be moorings in the harbor, but they won't be permitted by me.
yeah,
but just so you guys understand.
yeah, I saw that actually pretty extensively discussed in Stanford. Is that, in fact, Stanford's construction of their policy is that there is a stated intent for the harbor master to put a bias toward commercial vessels first, over pleasure vessels, but we don't have to worry about that. a note on,
As far as specify the submission of DMV registration, I mean, that's more of a, like a procedural thing. And it's not just at the time of renewal, it could also be at the time of assignment or awarding of the permit. But, you know, if it was renewal time, yeah, you have to send it in. But then say once the season commences and then there's an opening in the harbor, you would have to be required to provide it at that time also. So it's not just at the time of renewal, although you do have to provide it at the time of renewal. Just specifying.
yeah, if your intent is to make sure that in those two use cases, renewal as well as new applications, that there is a vehicle registration form that you need to see evidence of, then we should state that. Because otherwise.
You can. I mean, it's a state requirement. I don't.
Well,
yeah,
we
you
do
can
state
it.
that though, don't we?
Must submit
Yeah.
a current copy of their,
Yeah,
when and how.
when you do your online,
Oh, the
Uh,
online mooring.
yeah,
You
I
can
know.
upload.
your online
yeah.
mooring, it actually
Yeah.
requests
Yeah.
your current registration, and which in my case is kind of weird, because I renew as soon as I get the notice, which is usually in like February, and I don't actually
Yeah,
get my
that's-
registration until April.
I've run into that in the past. Everybody does, presumably.
Well, if you do it online, you get it much faster.
Yeah.
Because you
Well,
can
I
renew
think we're all in
online.
the same boat. You
Yeah.
want to get that stuff done.
Right.
And then,
But it means that when I do renew it and it asks for the registration, I don't have it.
Right.
Yeah,
So I gotta fill it
it's-
in later.
So it's a two-step process, which I'm going to, this year I had to do it on a very sort of manual basis. I had to do it independently. Procedurally, when the notices go out this year, it's going to be step one, agree to the terms of your permit, pay the $15, and with a notation that the second step, which will start in March, April, March, whatever it may be, you'll be required to upload your Connecticut DMV registration for your
But
vessel.
I think, I would suggest that we should be more general in the ordinances, that you have to have one on file, and not get
Right.
into the timing of that, because
Yeah.
that will change depending on what
Yeah.
software packages John uses, and.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a requirement. It's going to be, I think, more of a harbor master FYI than an ordinance. I don't think you want to get that granular.
I like having it on file without being more specific. I think that's a good.
I'll come to that one, I'll get there. I've
Okay.
got there to D. Okay, E, let's get into the. So here's the point that I think my foundation says the greatest prioritization for renewals and access to a mooring should be to current mooring holders.
But let's just review kind of as a practical matter how this works, which is the inside moorings close to Norotan Yacht Club, close to the boat club,
Or small boats.
are best suited for small boats. Those are also the most in demand because people it's more protected and it's a shorter launch ride to get to it.
Mhm.
So what this section is really talking about is when you get a bigger boat. In terms, we talk about Darien Harbor as if it has a single wait list. And in some senses it does, but in some senses it does not. If you want a mooring way out in the deep water that's suitable for a big boat, there is no wait list for that. You can get one of those pretty quickly. And so what is happening in this thing is people are selling their small boat, getting a bigger boat. So they tend to be moving out in the harbor and there's not as much pressure on, so this language is creating that we're not guaranteeing that we can give them a mooring, but in the real world, usually we can figure out a space to give them because they're moving into the area where there's less of a wait list. And so I can't think of a situation over the last number of years where someone's got a bigger boat, we couldn't find a place for them. It's just that we can't guarantee that they get a place.
Right.
But
It also works towards notification to the harbor master that you intend on getting a larger vessel, which allows me to communicate with the contractor or contractors in the harbor. Can we accommodate this? Now, we've been able to in most cases. There was a lot of discovery this year, a lot of open moorings. But as time goes on and then we start filling up all of those moorings, those options are going to start to diminish. So I'm trying to set expectations with everyone before you go out, and it happened, but we were able to accommodate it, where somebody went from a 27 footer to or a 25 footer to a 33 or 34 footer, and they wanted to stay in the same place. And the problem is, where they were, they'd be banging into other boats. So then you have that conversation, well, I don't want to move. So, well, you have to move because you can't be in that area because you'll be calling me and telling me
It's a safety
I'm
issue.
banging into another boat.
Yeah, yeah.
So you get that where I don't want to move, or, having this verbiage sparks the conversation so they can understand what the availability is.
But we could.
Because some people don't want to be all
but
the way
we
to the
could-
other harbor too.
But let's go through the scenario here. So say somebody has a 20-foot center console that's way in the northern part of the harbor, and they go out and they sell that boat and they buy a 45-foot cabin cruiser, all right? That new boat, certainly the mooring tackle that's there for, it has to be changed, but also the swing radius is a
Yeah.
problem. So that new boat has to move. Now, when that boat moves, it frees up a new small, a small mooring
Yeah,
for somebody else. So it seems to me that you could, again, trying to think about what seems fair, for somebody who's been a boater in Darien Harbor, if they buy a boat and they free up a mooring because we're moving them out of a place, it seems to me that if somebody else showed up that same year with a new 45-foot boat that had never had a mooring before, and I had to choose between the two of them, I would give it to the person who had been a long-standing participant in the harbor over the person with a new big boat. Now, remember, we're also creating a new open small mooring in that. So if we want to get so specific in this of creating that sort of prioritization, that at least to me seems fair.
Yeah, going back to this concept of equitable that we've used, that seems to me equitable. That appears to me as a existing mooring, bona fide mooring owner, that I've been treated fairly over a prospective new mooring person.
Yeah, now, similarly, I don't think John can't guarantee them that we have a spot for a 45-foot cabin cruiser. But probably we do, but we can't guarantee that.
right.
But we can say, we're not gonna give it to someone with a new boat that hasn't had a mooring before we give it to you.
We had an example of discussion earlier, that would feel to me to be the appropriate approach. This idea that the rights of the current mooring occupant should be higher than a aspiring new mooring person.
So it's really a question for you, John.
Yeah,
Do you wanna get that specific?
You really have to take it on a case-by-case basis. Does it benefit the wait list? Does it benefit the person that's currently in the harbor? Can we accommodate it? It's difficult to like say,
No,
this is how it's gonna work every time.
So here would be a suggestion then. Understand, this is always subject to the reality, but the idea is that this is your framework, these are your guidelines for allocation of moorings. And oversimplifying, allocation of moorings in a case where a person's vessel size grows and they cannot be safely accommodated in the existing, is that the prioritization would be to provide the next available larger mooring assignment to an existing mooring holder. By defining it along those lines with that intent, I think is both equitable as well as transparent. Because there's transparency, which is I think really what we describe as one of the important goals here. As opposed to, and I say this with respect, as opposed to at the discretion of the harbor master. And I'm
Well,
thinking
I-
about 2 harbor masters from now.
Well, it's,
But here's the thing though, it really is at the discretion of the harbor master. But my goal is to be fair and equitable. But the actual stationing of vessels in the harbor is at the discretion of the harbor master at the state level.
Understood.
But to
But
your
if-
point, I want to be fair and equitable as best as I possibly can.
So let's codify that in such a way that your intent to be equitable and fair, as provided by the state statute.
Right.
And that's, this doesn't take that, right? But if you identify your methodology and your framework, and it's consistently applied, then it takes the emotion out. And that's where I think,
Right.
we know this is a topic.
Yeah.
It's an emotional
but
topic.
it's really, to me, John, it's almost a question for you ultimately, because first of all, I haven't reviewed the code in a while that establishes the harbor master's rights and
Right.
responsibilities. But I don't think there's anything in there that says fair and equitable or anything like that. It's
No,
your
it-
absolute discretion.
Yeah,
And
it
so.
really is, but that's not how I operate.
So,
Well, yeah.
but in a world where also, not only do you want to operate, but you don't want to like have these appeals coming, or, you don't want to
No.
spend time talking to the Board of Selectmen about why this is the right thing.
Right.
How much kind of cover do you want in terms of, this is the way I'm supposed to do it, because it's written right here?
Right.
If you define it as your intent, I think you can get to what you want. But this is your intention, these are your framework for guidelines.
But I am a little bit concerned we're getting too much down into the weeds, because I gave us an example that was fairly extreme. And in the real world, it doesn't, in the sense that it was like for like boats and who would get the mooring. In the real world, it's never like for like boats. They don't always come up at exactly the same time, and I don't know that we should try this.
On this
Me-
one, I think we should, guys. I really do. Because I think this is an emotionally charged issue. I mean, there's angst in our harbor. Anytime. No,
There is, but for other reasons,
or-
not just the one you're speaking
No,
about.
I agree. I'm not limited to this case.
Right.
But I think there is angst in our harbor that we're trying to manage out of. And by creating clarity, it provides both it demonstrates your intent, and it also provides insight to the existing mooring owner as well as the aspiring mooring owner. That gives them choices in how you'll approach this. With all the while not without restricting you to the rights established at the state level. So I'm disagreeing. I think that there are a couple of use cases that I think would serve us well, particularly if we intend that with Great Island and other things, we will have greater density as opposed to less density. I think that all will.
No, I don't think we're going to have more density. We
I-
can't.
I'm not,
can't have
I'm
more
not adding
density.
more
I
mooring
think
to
there'll be-
Ziegler's,
I
no.
think there'll be more demand on.
There's always been huge demand for Ziegler's. The list is, the fact that the previous harbor master shut down the wait list for Ziegler's for a number of years. He just would not accept people adding onto that list. So,
But when we finally get to, I mean, the one thing where this is not, we haven't had the discussion, which is a separate discussion, of when the town finally gets Great Island kind of working, how should Ziegler's be run, Ziegler's Cove be run? In many respects, having private moorings in that sort of day harbor dominated by the town public space doesn't make any sense. It should be the town operating those moorings, the town paying for the higher mooring specifications. And so, and then maybe there's a fee, a daily fee for being on them, just like there are in many places. I'm not espousing that, I'm just saying that as an example, that's a discussion that people need to have in the future, that you're not gonna put them denser than they already are,
No.
but you could change the format.
All right.
yeah, well, it's
Yeah.
possible, but,
So my thought is, I'll offer some ideas,
okay.
and we can come back, and maybe just park this section. But I guess my bias is, and just stating this up front, is I'd like the guidelines, the operating guidelines of the harbor master for particularly the heavy usage Darien Harbor to be that there is a intent to give current mooring holders the first access to available moorings if their vessel needs changes. And it could be either bigger or smaller, although I don't think it's too many cases where they're smaller. But that's what I'm advocating for.
Oh, no, I understand it, I understand it.
And so I'll offer some ideas, that language that gets there. And we'll come back to that.
Sure.
Looking at, that's really associated with section E. And I'll invite others to have opinions as well, to offer language as well. Looking at F. Administratively, so you would want a mooring holder to notify you any cases where they're off the mooring for a period of time, greater than 3 weeks.
It helps identify, why is it empty? Because one of the questions that comes all the time is why is that mooring empty? And I should know why it's empty, because it comes back to usage. Is someone actually using the mooring? One of the things that I'm not saying it's pervasive, but one of the things I've experienced in similar scenarios is a vessel arriving before Memorial Day, disappearing for the summer, and then reappearing after Labor Day. I would want to discourage that.
Is that a scenario? That's an active scenario. That's
I want to discourage it. I don't know if it's an active scenario, but I want to discourage it, and I also need to know the usage in the harbor with such an extensive wait list.
But is
So there are a number of scenarios where people are away from their moorings for periods of time. So there's, people go on vacation,
Vacations?
they go on a cruise,
Oh,
they
yeah.
go, those reason I think that 3 weeks makes sense is most people under those scenarios don't go away for more than 3 weeks. So this wouldn't apply to them. Then there are people who have a mooring in Darien Harbor and have a dock slip on 5 Mile River. And sometimes they bring their boat over to Darien Harbor, but mostly it lives over in a dock somewhere. And then there are people who have houses in the Cape, Vineyard, wherever, and they have their boat here for a little bit in Darien Harbor, and then they take it to their summer house, and spends a lot of time up there. Those last two kind of cases, where it's either at a dock or it's living in Nantucket, those are the scenarios where, at least to me, it again seems fair. In a world where there are other people waiting to use their moorings, it seems fair to say you're not really using your mooring enough this summer for you to be able to take a space. And that's what this language, I think, is trying to get to.
I get it.
And there's a couple of cases that I'm aware of where the boats are registered in other states, and I'm trying to get them to register in the state of Connecticut, and then they'll tell me, well, the boat really isn't in Connecticut all that much, it's actually up in Rhode Island, which tells me the mooring stays empty and they might bring it down for a weekend and then it goes back up. So having this empty mooring sitting there that's not being utilized when the boat is really elsewhere, it's not an effective use of, mooring utilization.
So this Connecticut, I mean, I'm trying to think, you are the expert here, but the Connecticut statute, I thought, says anything in that Connecticut order is greater than 60 days must be registered.
Right.
So 60 days is greater than 3 weeks. So I just want to make sure I have the benefit of your thinking that says this is a problem we're trying to solve, or a problem we're trying to avoid. In the spirit of less language is more, which we had as a theme, we're trying to regulate less as opposed to more. Are we really solving a problem, or we're anticipating a problem that we'll have?
No, there's well over a dozen boats in the harbor, at least at the beginning of the year, this past year, that would fall into these. We're not
So this-
thinking
yeah,
of a
okay.
problem. There's,
Okay,
Mhm.
so now that we have some data, so you have a dozen boats
I mean,
that,
I'm just picking that number. You're
Does that feel
closer
right?
to it, but it's probably well over that.
I know of definitely of one, okay? And
I'm talking about the docks also. I'm just, all of the people who are like away. from
Oh,
the
well, there's
place.
people,
that's not-
there's
is
people
that
away,
your scope?
there's also
Yeah.
people stationing their boats elsewhere also, and we also mentioned that too. They really only keep their boat in Darien Harbor part-time, is what we're trying to weed out.
so essentially this would say to them, to administer, that basically you freed up, I'll use that number we heard, either 1 or 12. We freed up 1 or 12 moorings.
Something along those lines, yes. So, but if
And-
you're not in the harbor, if when you come upon a mooring that has a name on it and you see moss all over the pickup stick, where have they been? They reappear around September, but their boat was in earlier in the season, but it's disappeared for weeks on end. What's going on?
There are two groups of underutilized moorings in the harbor. There's the ones still with winter sticks on them,
Yeah, agreed.
Mhm.
all right?
Yeah.
And then there's the ones whose pickup sticks have 4 inches of seaweed growing on them.
Mhm.
Therefore, there's no vessel on that mooring.
There hasn't been a vessel on it basically all summer. And those are the ones we're talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
And your view is there's some defined number like that?
Yeah, the defined number at some point, technically, many of them could be determined as abandoned, because whereabouts unknown of the owner.
Okay?
But there's also utilization factor, we don't know, so.
But I would also say that there were many more of those at the beginning of this year than there are now, because this is sort of the rule that John has been trying to put into place. And so some of this has gotten cleaned up
Right.
over the course of the summer. But it's only because you were kind of like, in the absence of the ordinance, that's the practical rule you were trying to follow, which is if you're not really on your mooring, you shouldn't have a mooring.
So the people I were able to identify that don't have boats anymore, I was able to address, because they if they can't hold up to the agreement of the permit, meaning having a vessel and having it on by the 15th,
Right.
and it
That was
was
the first-
empty last year, that is an
Yeah.
abandoned mooring.
Therefore, subject to reassignment.
Exactly.
Okay.
You know, then there's ones we just don't understand the usage, because I talked to the contractor and they say, yeah, he was here, but you know, whereabouts unknown now. So by having this notification, if you're just going to be out of the harbor for an extended period of time, helps me understand what's going on. So I don't assume that it's abandoned if I don't see you on it. Because I have seen moorings with a lot of, you know, growth on them, only to find out, yeah, he's been gone for about a month or so.
But we also, the one thing I would add about this, point out about this language is the last sentence, which is we were, in drafting this, trying to specifically envision that the harbor master would have discretion. If somebody writes him, calls him, talks to him, and says, look, this is what I'm doing, and,
Yeah.
you know, if it seems like reasonable,
I mean, it could be mechanical difficulties, for all I know. It's just sharing of information.
I'm just trying to manage, frankly, from the public's view, is the administrative load associated with the mooring. I mean, we want the people to be responsible boaters that,
Yeah.
that use the asset and manage the administrative load. You don't want it, and no one wants to give it to you. I mean,
Well, it's actually more work for me to try and figure out what's going on than then just having them reach out and tell me.
well,
I mean, but even by the existing ordinances, if they're not gonna be on their mooring by the 15th, they have to notify the harbor master.
yeah,
I
but
mean,
for
we
the average
could, to
boater,
reduce the administrative, this language in here says requests for exceptions must be made in writing, or we could eliminate although in email is in writing, I think. but-
Yeah, just notify the harbor master that,
So, okay, I had two things. I was thinking about my registration, filling my online mooring that I fill in. It'd be great if we could edit that so that these 2 points were made. The boat's got to be in the water by the 15th, and if you're going to be away for more than 3 weeks, let John know. And just as you pay your $15 for the month, those things are in boldface, because I'm concerned that there's a whole lot of boat owners in our harbor who don't have a clue that there are boat ordinances and don't have a clue that this actually is what they're governed by. All they know is online mooring, $15 done.
well, there is actually, and you probably don't pay, and I'm not talking about just you,
Well,
I'm talking,
I think
there's a
might apply.
checkbox that you're supposed to, you have to scroll down, read the agreements, and it's got a number of things in it that are stated in the ordinances.
You're right, I do shoot
But
right
you
by
shoot right
them.
past it, you click the
Yes.
bottom, and then you pay
It's true.
$15.
It's true.
And I've had to bring that to the attention, well, where's that written? I go, in the agreement that you signed off on at the beginning of the season. So, yeah, I mean, some of that I want to rewrite, because a lot of it's just fluff that seems to me it's there to protect the
Make a lawyer happy.
software folks, but there is specifications
Okay,
about what you're supposed to do with your boat. Like, it actually says there, you can't lend, lease, let other people borrow your boat. It's actually in there. Yeah.
the other question I had is, have you guys settled on 3 for any reason?
3 weeks.
Yeah, as opposed to 4
No,
or
it's
5,
4.
because I just think about people going up to Maine, if they're in a sailboat and they're going to Maine,
I
it's 4 weeks.
doesn't
don't
give you
know that
hard
there's a big difference between.
I really don't. I mean, I don't think it's that
No,
big
the
of a deal.
principle's a good
Just-
one,
yeah.
I'm just thinking,
You know.
are you settled on 3?
If you wanted to change it to 4, I don't think that's.
yeah, I could get closer to it and I
Sold.
can't, yeah. Okay.
Okay. And I think the big thing is, in so many of these issues, like moving a boat, you know, if I sell my 20-foot and I want to, because I'm buying a 30-foot boat and I can't clearly park it where I've got it off the yacht club, off Pear Tree because I got no water, and I need to go to deeper water, I just need to get into a dialogue with you as soon as humanly possible. And I understand that.
Yeah, if you,
And-
I mean, in the terms of the permit, it says that, any changes to the conditions of the permit have to be approved by the harbor master first, and that is changing the specifications of your boat. In the short time I've been doing this, that always hasn't been the case.
No.
People have shown up. I know one guy that I'm actually friendly with, and all of a sudden, there's a new boat on his mooring, and did you get a new boat? So fortunately, there was
Because I don't have enough water for
there was
you.
no specification changes for the tackle, thank God, because he didn't go that much up. But now there's a new boat in the harbor, and I don't know what the story is. So I'm just trying to encourage people to reach out to me so that we can make any necessary preparations if they want to go larger, if they want to go smaller.
My only point is that this is sort of inside baseball. This is Coastal Waters Commission, this is Board of Selectmen, and there's however many boat owners there are in your world, 200, I don't know what the right answer is, but 300? Okay.
Moorings in.
Okay, 300. And most of this is either in the common sense bucket or in the talk to the harbor master bucket. And
Well, but how about this as a slightly different, expanded procedure, which is literally if you took this, whether it's this whole ordinance or whether it's section 7832, and when John issues a permit, he sends an email with this attachment, say like, these are the rules.
in the bottom of the text, because they won't
Yeah.
open the attachment.
Yeah, well, there's only so much you can do, but if we were like not forcing them to go look at Darien Town ordinances, not forcing them to scroll through all the
Just give it to
legalese,
them.
just send it to them when you say,
Yeah.
or
Might
or
increase the
send it to all the
communication
mooring
to you.
holders on June 1.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, I
do-
can,
do
I
it
can
as a
work with,
blast.
I can work with a software provider to see if an attachment can be sent, or actually, it probably would just be, it could be a hyperlink to the ordinances.
Just mechanics. I think it's a practical matter. Of the 300 mooring holders, what are the situations that would cause them to have to do something different than they have done the previous year? Their boat has changed,
New boat or bad tackle.
new boat, I mean, there's like 3 or 4 cases. Other than that, I'm looking forward to unfettered, if nothing changes, I want to use my mooring unfettered as I've done the year before. And if it's something's changed, why? Answer the why. And other than that, then the use cases say, I get a bigger boat, small boat, or I want to put get a mooring out there. If we help those cases with our ordinances,
Yeah, I mean, those are the common, but those are common issues, but there's also been issues of, I'm lending the mooring to someone else. There's a number of other scenarios that
there's-
come about.
The way you phrased that is sort of half the picture, which is you as a mooring holder, you may feel that, but for those circumstances, I don't want to have to do anything else. But there is, I think, a regulatory and oversight point of view that John has that says, I need to know certain things in order to do my job effectively. And so that puts an information burden on you, the mooring holder,
Yeah.
that you might not otherwise want, but I think it's part of this is to help him keep track of whose boats are in the harbor and when.
yeah, so I always come back to this concept, there's a balance point. There's a balance point.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, for example, Darien Boat Club or any other club, you need to provide that club with your registration. We don't ask for proof of insurance. Some of the other towns do ask for proof of insurance. But even as a club or a marina, you're responsible at the state level for knowing who's on your docks. So this isn't anything.
That's a boat club set of
Well,
responsibilities.
it's actually a state issue imposed on clubs and marinas you're supposed to know who's on your docks.
Understood,
So you have to,
that's not our
they
case,
actually
though.
collect, no, they don't, but I'm just saying, what, the burden that we're talking about here in the harbor would be the same if you were on a dock somewhere else, or a marine or something.
It's
Yeah.
coincidental, it's the same.
Yeah.
We're just trying to manage the right balance point. Okay.
Okay, so that's our stuff. And I've got things that I have to deliver back to you that I said I would rewrite and submit to you as soon as possible, which I will do. What do you want, Kevin, us to think about all this stuff that you included from Stanford?
Here was my thought from the framework, is this is a way to introduce enough additional control so that both the mooring, the permit, the mooring holder, as well as the harbor master has adequate, control of the process. So that was my framework. And I, stated, as I indicated earlier, I went to a party that has done this work and wondered, how have others approached this? Do we need to start from scratch? And can we is any of this language helping either John or the legitimate?
Well,
From a holder.
I read over this, and much of it is what we're proposing
Yeah,
doing.
there's redundancy. I didn't look to
Yeah.
craft this. I looked for a
Right.
body of content that
I-
either language gets us there.
I mean, I can't remember there's anything
So-
that actually stood out.
Would it make sense for somebody, maybe you, Kevin, to go through this, then look at what we've now talked about, and then try to highlight things that are not
Yeah.
adequately,
I'll give an example. On the top of, actually, section 2, assignment of mooring locations. 2A is a process associated with,
Are we talking about the Stanford stuff?
yep,
Yeah.
yep,
Okay,
correct.
all right, hold on.
2A,
Page 5 of
a prioritization about, this is a prioritization that the harbor master will use in terms of determining
Sure.
how they will allocate new moorings.
Yeah, I know, that's something that, we discussed. And that was something that you proposed coming up with some
Yeah.
verbiage for.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
sure.
that was the purpose of this whole section is there someone who's crafted a language that will help us get to what we want, as opposed to
Okay.
starting from scratch?
can I also just point out that paragraph B in here is addressing one of the other big discussion topics that we haven't discussed, which is the overlay on all of this of littoral
Yeah.
property owner rights.
Yeah.
And, John, did you come to the conclusion that that was not something that we had to, or you had to focus on because it was a state of Connecticut thing, or?
Well, in the other management plans that I saw, they have the same approach. People with littoral rights, they don't have to get on the wait list. They're given first priority. If you can assign a mooring in front of their property, you should do it, and it sort of references that too in the literature that I've read at the state level. Question is, Norwalk takes it to the stance of, littoral rights. There's 3 different methods of littoral rights. Access to navigable waters from your beachhead, a dock, and a mooring. Norwalk even gets down to the level of, if you have a dock, it is at the harbor master's discretion as to whether or not you will be awarded a mooring because of their high demand also.
Right.
I'm not proposing that measure, although I do have concern. There are circumstances where, I definitely see that a person with littoral rights and a dock would need a mooring in certain circumstances, bad weather, etc. But there are other places that are very, very well protected, and I don't think it would be wise for them to take their
And
boat out into the harbor.
It is, given our coastal configuration, this issue, to me, seems pretty complicated. Because there are people who own waterfront property where, so the question is, does owning any piece of waterfront property give you a right to have a prime mooring in Darien Harbor? Or does it give you the right to have a mooring in front of your house? And what if in front of your house is either a mud flat, or it's too rough to have a mooring, or it's too far away from Darien, main Darien Harbor? What if you live over in Tokenique? And so it's complicated.
Yeah, it's myriad of choices. Is this a subject greater than what we can contemplate? I mean, if the littoral rights are rights given by the state, then they're given by the state.
Yeah, I think there was a couple circumstances that you and I talked about where I had given someone a mooring who had littoral rights, but they couldn't even build a dock and have access to navigable waterway, because when the tide goes out, the dock would probably be 300 feet, like a lot of 5 Mile River docks on the Darien side. They're literally half a mile away from navigable water. There has been a couple circumstances where I've given people moorings that have littoral rights that are on tidal mudflats, but that number is very low. It's not a common thing.
When you did that, were you, did they?
They were on the wait list. I recognized that they had littoral rights,
And you moved them up?
and then I discussed it
That's the
with
thing. It's, of course, anybody can get on the wait list.
Yeah,
Right.
that's where
It's
I'm
whether
trying to
you
tease
get
that out.
bumped up.
them. Right,
Which I think was the intent here, that said there is a process of determining where you will fit.
yeah.
That's how Stanford used
There's
their language.
there's nothing written in any of the ordinances about that. It's, in my discussions with the state, they're like, yeah, they get, you give them a mooring if they
Would
ask
you,
for one.
so my question to you in turn would be, is if you look at this language, would this accomplish that? And I says rhetorically. I don't know, you did, it's
No,
kind of yours.
there's nothing written in here about littoral rights.
Well, this is,
Yeah.
But I do think it's worth I think we should all sleep on this one and think and learn more about it, sleep on it, and actually look at the language that grants littoral rights, because at least my layman's reading of it suggests that what that language is trying to do is to say people who have property on the water can access the water from their property. And if you can have a dock, that's great. If you want to have a mooring right off your shore and row out to your boat, that's great. But it doesn't say that if I have a house that is miles away on the Darien coastline, that I get to bump up my way in the Darien Harbor mooring wait list. It's not clear to me that that's the intent of that language.
Yeah. But the thing is, when it comes to littoral rights and it's a state guarantee, I mean, we've seen examples in Darien Harbor of to what extent the state has given people to build docks way out to navigable water.
So let's take an example of going up the gut,
That's
and there's houses on,
what I think you
I think
and I
Harbor
talked.
Road,
Oh, Harbor Road.
Yeah.
that have nothing but mud
Yeah,
in front of them.
That is a person. That is a scenario we're talking about.
They have nothing but mud, analogous to 5 Mile River mud. Which means that under any scenario with a 13-foot whaler, they have 6 hours of navigation and 6 hours of not navigation, right? I mean, they're on the mud flat.
Right.
And yet, there are docks out there, the floats sit on the mud. If they have a whaler, the whaler sits tied to the dock, it's on the mud, it's not going anywhere. They were grown-ups when they bought that property, and when they built that dock, and when they bought that whaler. I don't see why that should give them priority on getting a mooring out in the harbor.
When they sell that property to the next person,
I don't care.
yeah, my point is just that, is that, that scenario, I mean, you bought the property knowing that, and your successor bought the property, should they get a prioritization in the mooring lift? That's the,
So,
So that's the political question, which is how do you, I mean, and it's, I don't know if there's a right or a wrong answer.
So do
It's
we-
a question.
do we tread in waters we don't want to tread in if we introduce this literal rights thing into our own ordinances?
I wouldn't go there, because it's a state issue, not
Okay,
not
fair
a dairy.
enough. I'm happy with these ordinances as we've talked about amending them. It seems to me we've agreed on certain next steps. I mean, I know what my own next steps are. We know that some of them will require review by council.
Mhm.
We know that we've got to share them with the other members of the Coastal Waters Commission and I'm sure a lot of other people. But we can wrap this portion up fairly quickly, right?
my thinking
We're
is.
not that far away.
No, how do you guys describe it? We're 90% done? Is there need for one more meeting like this to wrap it up?
I'm not sure we need another meeting because I think we may have individual back and forth on, oh, you didn't get this fixed or that fixed, but eventually we're going to have something that will be a red line against what's currently on the books of the town and a clean copy, right? So we'll have what's on the books, a red line, a clean copy, and those will be three things that we'll be able to give to anybody.
That says we're delegating to this other party the aggregate. And I think in practice, what we should create is a consensus or a summary document amongst ourselves.
Oh,
And that should go to
absolutely.
Richard. Okay, I just want to make.
Before production, but are deliverable to the Board of
Yes.
Selectmen, to other members of the Coastal Commission, to whoever wants it,
Yeah, agreed.
is
Yeah.
what's on, what's changed, what is recommended.
And the why, and it's that they wish guidance about why. Well,
And so we can move forward, right, on that?
I think the process we're in agreement on. The steps to that is I think one more meeting to wrap this up.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think we probably have to, as a group, whatever we add to this, we need to review as a group. Hopefully it
Okay, well, I
should
know
go a lot quicker.
the suggested changes that I'm responsible for are modest.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'll do those quick, and circulate it to us. And then whoever wants to weigh in on that can weigh in. And I'll try, I've got to go to the city tomorrow, but I should be able to get this done on, is that mine? I should be able to get it to you guys before the weekend.
My thought would be is I've made a couple edits, like for example, the number of the period for notification when you're away from warning is now at 4 weeks. Yep.
Well, do you want to send me the red line and I'll mark
Yes.
off that?
That's what I suggest
Okay.
we do. And I try to, for example, any other changes that we have alignment on.
Okay, fair enough.
So that'll be a starting point. It goes to
And then you send it to me, then I'll do my little thing, I'll
Yeah.
send it around to the four of us, expecting that the next one will probably be Flip. No?
Sorry, say again?
Well,
I was with you all.
Kevin's gonna give me the one that he's made some fast edits on, and I'm gonna do what I've said I would do.
Yeah,
And then I will distribute it to the four of us.
Yeah.
I guess we might all declare victory and go home, but if there are changes, someone's gotta be the keeper of the master.
Yeah, so,
And I guess I'll send it back around to all four of you,
Yeah.
but you own it.
yeah, I'll
Is
own
that
it.
right?
Yeah, I'll own it.
Okay,
And-
okay.
and-
yeah, and we can once you distribute the next act, we can each respond to all of us with our further comments.
Yeah.
And then we'll see if we need to get back together again or not.
I suspect we will, just to create closure, but if we don't, less is
Okay.
more.
Fair enough.
Right.
Good.
All right, I think
Thank you.
we're now in adjournment.
No, we should ask if there are any comments or questions from the public.
No, you've done a great job. Keep it going.
Okay,
So then we
So
are now in
moved.
adjournment. Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
so moved.
Seconded? Done it, thank you.
Done.
It's only four of us.
I know.
I know.
Actually, 4+.